to everyone. My name is Ankur. I will be moderating this session. I'll take 5 minutes to quickly introduce the panelists in a little more detail so that you guys appreciate the context that's here and more importantly appreciate the experience that they bring in. To my extreme right is Lakshmi. She heads customer service and operations at Vodafone, 20 years of experience across multiple industries where she's worked in travel, media, Star TV, ICICI, and lastly telecom, where she's been with Vodafone for the last 10 years. It's great to have you, Lakshmi. Thank you so much. Manish, who is the managing director of Jet Privilege, which sponsored my honeymoon. He is based in Bombay. He's been at the helm of Jet Privilege since its inception and has overseen the growth of the company and, of course, this program for over a year and a half. He's also an active member of many professional societies and a thought leader on marketing, loyalty program design and development, strategic planning, airline revenue management, and CRM. Nice to have you, Manish. Thank you so much. Alvinder, who is the Director of Business Development at Twitter. He's been with Twitter driving user growth, developer adoption, and revenue impact across the APAC markets, and has spent 17 years across multiple industries and lived and worked across the world. You can, of course, connect with Arvinder at Arvinder Gujral on Twitter. Ankit, VP Operations, OYO. He's an engineering graduate from IIT Madras, did his MBA from ISB, worked with ITC Foods for nearly 4 years, and then was with McKinsey for 5 years, and then left them to join OYO and has been with them managing operations for them, delivering distinctly customer experience and building the operations backend. And finally, Ravinesh, who is an executive director of public grievance at Indian Railways. He graduated from IIT Delhi and joined the Indian Railways Traffic Service and has been instrumental in implementing the call center-based inquiry system of Indian Railways through the universal number 139, which I'm sure most of us have been through. He did that as a director in the Railway Board in 2006. And of course, every little interaction that happens between a passenger and the Indian Railways is through his cell. Thank you so much for being here. Can we have a quick round of applause, appreciating all of them? Thank you. So here's what we're going to do. The title of this panel discussion is how to manage customer experience across channels and leverage customer data for the same. The structure of this panel discussion will be, given the industries and the organizations that these individuals represent, there are some specific questions that I would have for them on their experience and how they think of customer experience and data, which will be a quick rapid-fire question. And drawing from that experience, we will then have a follow-on question round and then open it up to the audience. We have an hour and 15 minutes, which is a pretty long time for a panel discussion. So we'll try and shorten it, but more importantly, it's important for you guys to engage and draw from the experience, not so much for it to become a monologue. Okay? At any point of time, if you do have a very relevant question on something that someone has said, feel free to raise it. Don't wait for the last minute. We will take it as it comes. Okay. So let's begin with Lakshmi yourself. You've been at Vodafone for now 10 years, managing the entire customer service and experience and operations piece. When you're managing a customer base of almost 200 million people, the immediate challenge that I can foresee in doing so is to manage the uniformity, whether it's communication, whether it's intent, whether it's outreach, across all the channels that customers today engage with at a brand level. How does Vodafone think about that?
So honestly, at Vodafone, you're right, we have about 7 channels, 200 million consumers, almost. What has worked for us and what we focus on is a single service framework, right? Irrespective of the channel, who within Vodafone manages, all customer lifecycle definitions, right from defining the process to what goes out as communication to training 40,000 plus frontline across retail and contact centers, is customized and consolidated with one function, right? So that truly has worked for us in the last so many years. Also, as way forward, as we add new channels, like in the last, say, 2.5, 3 years, we have completely changed our focus on digital simplicity. So that too becomes a part of this common framework which goes in. So while you see a lot of things that happens on the digital platform, you will continue to see a fair amount of standardization and seamlessness in other channels as well. So consolidation, fantastic CRM, right? Honestly has helped us manage standardized and seamless delivery across both traditional and the non-traditional channels.
Okay, great. And over time, there has been this focus, especially when you're handling such a large customer base, for organizations to start thinking of how we move to a do-it-for-me customer approach to the self-help or the power to you, as you described it, customer service approach.
Yes.
And how has Vodafone led that within?
So honestly, if I look at it, about say 5 years back, if somebody asked me, so help us understand what is the mix between assisted and non-assisted care, it was about 80%, 85% in assisted and about 15 to 20% in non-assisted. For the last 1 year now, the range now is 94:6. Right. So 94% of consumers at Vodafone now start doing things on their own. So our concept of more power to you is working fantastically well. So what we saw in terms of adoption a couple of years back, integrated voice IVRs, we saw a lot of adoption in USSD, which is now transforming into the digital space. So for the last 2 years, we are seeing immense movement onto our app. Last year, we have doubled the number of unique users. So we see if you continue to make it simple and effortless for customers, you understand where the need is, and there's a lot of focus on consumer insights. While from one aspect, from the NPS, touchpoint NPS perspective, we listen to consumers a lot. We have a lot of focus on face-to-face interactions with customers. Every time we want to develop something new, we do it along with customers. We focus a lot on consumer focus groups. We build it along with them. We make changes along with them. And I think we've embarked on this simple and effortless journey, which I think is working really, really well for us in India and with Vodafone consumers.
Great. I had a follow-up question, and I was always curious about this. Feel free not to share it if it's not relevant. What is the most fundamental cut, the basis of which the customer may get a different set of customer service experience? So is it the ARPU of the user? Is it the longevity of the user with the brand? If you could just shed some light on that.
It's honestly a combination of both. Right, so we at Vodafone manage a combination of ARPU and age on network. We value it both ways, right? So of course we have a segmented play. You know, cost of service is really, really huge when you talk about 200 million plus customers. So as you rightly said, it's a combination of both.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lakshmi. That was useful. Moving on to Manish, who, as I mentioned, manages the Jet Privilege program at Jet Airways. I should let you know, if you don't know that already, the first vow that a management consultant takes, I was a management consultant in my past background, maybe Ankit, you can testify about that, is your honeymoon will be sponsored by Airline Rewards. You have to fly enough to have that, and I was privileged enough to have that vow come through. You've been running what I would call is perhaps the most successful customer engagement and loyalty program in the country, not just in the airline industry, but in general as well. But it's also been what I would call, if that's the right word, a closed loop, which means people earn and burn within the Jet Airways framework. And there are examples globally which do not necessarily follow this. They have an open network where you could earn by flying on the airline, but you could burn it on multiple channels. Is that a conscious strategy? What's the thought process behind that, of having this closed network? We'd love to know.
Sure. So, as you rightly said, it's a closed network. What it means by closed network is, as you can earn on multiple partners, but burn on only for award tickets for free flights. Worldwide, if you look at it, the travel-centric programs or loyalty reward programs, which are anchored around travel lifestyle, largely are the highest reward is the travel, is the award travel or the free travel. That's the promise which is made. But having said that, it's not that the non-air awards are not popular. They are popular. But in the ratio of air versus non-air, non-air is a small component. Why we didn't do it? We were focused on building what we call and measure ourselves on the utility value of the currency. So mile is a currency. What value it drives for different people is different. And we monitor and track the utility value of the currency to take it to a level before we kind of open it up for the non-air. So we are just about to launch in the next 3 months the non-air award. So we will be opening up because we have reached a scale and a size where the currency value will determine. So at the end of the day, customer is using these miles. I'm redeeming 1,000 miles or 10,000 miles. What value he ascribes to it will determine. Unlike others where you have certain value which is published, so a mile is 50 paisa. But then what happens is you fix the value, the perceived value can be higher than the fixed value. And that's where the challenge is always to manage this utility value. So to answer your question, yes, we will be opening up and work is in progress. In the next 2 or 3 months, we should be launching the non-air awards.
Great, that's good news, thank you. And the follow-up question on that is, there is naturally this cost of customer retention that you have to bear by providing such a program. Is it easy to quantify the impact of such a program when you run it? And if not, do you see non-quantifiable impact, whether it's on brand, whether it's on the stickiness, the word of mouth, or in general anything else that you measure? How do you go about qualifying the success of a loyalty program?
Sure. So firstly, some of you may not know this, but we are an independent company with a separate P&L and board. So, and the way we have structured is we have monetized the data. And there is underlying value in the data. So when the program was carved out of the airline, the program was actually bought over from the airline. And there's underlying value, and the transaction value is close to $300 million. You build on it, you got the data, you build on it. So the partners are not going to continue unless and until you show return on investment. And the return on investment is definitely monitored and measured, not for the shareholders in terms of return on capital employed, and we are a profitable company, but from value it brings. So we have different metrics with our partners when we measure those values, whether it is the revenue impact on our partners, revenue contribution to our partners. There are different ways to measure it, and the earn-burn ratios as to how the earn-burn ratios work. So there is some bit of science and some bit of methodology around creating that value. Of course, brand has a significant value element embedded in it, and net promoter scores, those brands who look at it are ways to measure it, but we don't follow that particular approach. We have a different approach to look at it, and we continuously work with our partners. They are the key stakeholders. So for us, delivering value to our partners is ultimate.
And just as a follow-up question, thank you, Ankur, is from your experience of having managed such a large-scale program for so many years, do you see that the learning of that translates across industries, or is the airline industry somewhat peculiar in its characteristics and thus may not have something similar translate to, say, an internet industry or, say, the retail industry in the offline world? Would they also have similar programs, or you can replicate one across the other, or are there differences that you would imagine?
So when we carved the program out, we bifurcated the program into two parts: the reward program and the recognition program. Now, recognition program is largely delivering value to the brand, and in this case, it is to Jet. So, how often you fly, how frequently you fly, how much revenue flying you to with Jet, it determines whether you're silver, gold, platinum, and the benefits associated with those recognition is largely funded by the airline, and there's a ROI case on it. But for the reward program, we work with almost 150 odd partners, including some of the airline partners, which are Jet partners as well. Our air miles are roughly around 60%, and non-air miles are 40%, which essentially means out of the total 20 billion miles which we issue each year, the split between air and non-air is that much, which essentially means that miles as a currency is a motivational activity for a lot of customers, where they earn miles through non-air partners as well. And the currency value and the motivation drives to change the behavior. And we have seen it across different partners, whether it's our co-brand partners or hotel partners. The currency drives engagement, the currency drives behavior. And that's the core epic. And that's where the reward program is structured around, the value which member is able to get out of the currency.
Great, thank you. I want to do a quick check from the audience. Let's say you are the member of a loyalty program, whether it's Jet Privilege, or it's a body shop, or it's a common club, or whatever the case is. How often does that influence your purchase decision within that category? So let's say if you are the holder of the Shopper Stop loyalty program and you have to go out and buy apparels, how much would that influence your decision to go to a Shopper Stop as against going to someplace else? People who think that it will be highly influenced, show of hands. Okay, can we have a clearer show of hands? Right. All right.
If I own a co-branded card.
If you want to go back to?
If I own a co-branded card, then definitely.
All right, so what you're buying does play a role, of course. But if that was available at the brand that you have a card at, and it was also available somewhere else, but that somewhere else is closer to where you are, would you travel the distance to go because you have a loyalty card? How many would? Show of hands. I just made it a little difficult. Okay. There is one individual who will do that. All right. Just trying to understand what that pattern is. Great. I'll ask you follow-up questions when you go along. Let's move on. Twitter. Social media is now, of course, the new favorite customer service channel on multiple fronts. We love both praising and bashing brands on Twitter. Somehow, people feel that if they write something on Twitter, they will definitely get a response, but not on Facebook. Something's there, they take it seriously. But you guys have recently launched the CSAT NPS, and now it almost seems as if it wasn't so much by design, but I feel it, that Twitter is becoming like a very important customer engagement and outreach tool. Do you guys internally also think of it as that? And if yes, are there things that you do within the product to help brands and customers connect?
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to get a quick context. How many of you have your own handles on Twitter, an account on Twitter? Wow, thank you. I love this audience. All right, so I'll skip the usual stuff because it's not usually so overwhelmingly positive for me. To answer your question, brands, when the product was launched, it's now 10 years old, Twitter, it was never imagined to be one of the ways in which customers will engage with brands and actually have an engagement platform where they'll talk, bash, praise, sometimes more bashing than praising, but nevertheless. And to answer the question, why on Twitter versus Facebook, very simply this. Facebook is a closed network, and when I say something privately to you, you may like, just you and me, I don't care what you say. Twitter is an open network, so when somebody says something to the brands react immediately because they don't want that to be left out in the open as an unanswered question. The historical context, it was never intended, but people really realized that you can engage with people, you can engage with brands, you can engage with the NASA rover on space, You can engage with the Taj Mahal. So it's become an engagement platform. Once that had happened, brands took upon themselves to become more forward about engaging with their audiences and building an audience on Twitter. There is a reason why, and just to put it out there, we never pay anyone to come on the platform. From a Justin Bieber to an Amitabh Bachchan to a brand, they come on their own volition, right? And it is not surprising that individuals have more followers on Twitter than brands which have 10,000 times more marketing budgets than an individual would, right? There is no reason why an Airtel with an unsurmountable marketing budget has lesser number of followers than Amitabh Bachchan, right? Who doesn't spend anything on himself on the platform. But that goes to show that people interact with people who have this humanity in the account, right? If a corporate handle is all about PR speak, then people don't want to talk to you. If you're talking about who you are as an individual or as a brand, people want to engage with that. That showed us a lot of things across the world. A lot of brands did a lot of innovative stuff on the platform. And I'll give credit to a lot of Indian brands. Jet Airways is one of them. Kotak and ICICI, Reliance as a telco. One of the first few partners who showed us the way that you can do a lot more than pure customer service. Customer service is about, I have an issue, can you resolve, right? And public shaming on Twitter happens and the resolution happens. And we've seen that over a period of time across the world. But these brands in India took a leap forward and said, we can drive business KPIs, right? So you can tweet to the airline and find the lowest fare for a sector. You can tweet to the bank and transfer money from one account to the other. You can find your account balance. You can pay your DTH or cable bills, your electricity bills, right? So that is driving a business KPI of that brand on Twitter, not just doing customer service in a traditional parlance. And it is not surprising that the first bank to do this is not a Bank of America. It was a Kotak and an ICICI. The first airline to do is not United Airlines in the US. It is a jet in India, right? So that showed us what is possible on the platform with very little engagement from us. We supported it, the ecosystem partner who came in and he switched it on in the middle. And we took it upon ourselves to better our product. So we launched a formal product on Twitter now that brands can access. So one thing that is very common as call center executives, you would know, someone tweets to you, your agent says, can you follow me? Then you follow relationship. Then a DM relationship is established. Then you DM him, can you give me your number and I'll call you. That's a very full of friction, that relationship that is formed. So we've created a new product wherein if we switch it on for you, and if someone tweets to your handle, when your agent replies back, automatically there's a link at the bottom of the tweet which says take it to private conversation. It goes to DM. No relationship needs to be established, right? So that removes all the friction. And you quickly and you take away the negative comments that's happening on your timeline to a private conversation. Because you don't want me as a prospective customer to come to your Twitter timeline and see all negative complaints about you. So quickly move it to a private. We are launching NPS again, and we are doing a little differently. Instead of putting numbers, which are boring, social media is all about fun element. That's why I'm not wearing a shirt. We're putting smileys. We're putting a smiley face to a really sad face. So 5-point scale, but from a smiley to a super sad face. So the guy at the end of the conversation with the agent will click on one of those icons and say what they felt like. Over a period of time, you have a complete NPS score of the agent or the kind of questions that have been resolved or the call center, etc. Right? And we can switch it off. And we're launching more features as we go along. So we have acknowledged that this is something that brands want to do, and we did not show really much love to them. And now we've launched Apple came on board, and we're one of the only platforms there on board where they do customer care and customer resolutions, right? And that was completely top down, both on Apple and Twitter, for them to come on board and put together an army of people because they're a global brand, they're a loved brand, they can't do anything half-hearted. So that was the evidence for us.
Great, awesome. That makes a lot of sense. I can imagine this being very successful. How many of you have used Twitter to connect with a brand, whether to share a grievance or to express customer delight? Show of hands? Okay, quite a few of you. That's great, encouraging. How many of you heard back from the brand? Almost all of you. Great. So brands are clearly engaged. That's heartening to know. And do you see this becoming more of the fact that you're thinking of a product roadmap to solve for this particular need clearly indicates that there's thought within the organization that this is a definite path you want to follow. do you see this becoming almost like the, or let me ask the question differently. Do you see that within India?
Social CRM.
Yeah. Do you see yourself going into a direction which may be broader or different from the original Twitter world?
Okay. So let me again put some context to this, right? Twitter is a social platform for communication. You follow your interests on Twitter. You don't necessarily follow your grandmother, right? So what it means is you tweet about what you like, your interests, right? If you're in golf, you may follow Tiger Woods. Not necessarily everything he does, but some things. And about 1 billion tweets are generated on the platform every 2 days, right? So that's when they say big data, this is big data, right? Given that, a lot of brands want to pay us money to get insight. Like if you're a Vodafone or a Jet, right, or an Oyo, you want to know what a segment of customers who are probably the leaders in that segment are thinking about right now. You can do market research, send somebody out in the field, they'll compile over 2-3 weeks, then the report will be done, then they'll come to the junior manager who'll look at it, then he'll approve it, he'll go to senior manager. By the time the CEO is 3 months, and the market has moved on, right? And that's outdated data. Twitter is live pulse, real time. You can have a pulse on your customers, your competitors' customers, your industry on an every second basis. So you have a pulse of what they're talking about, right? From a product, segmentation, go-to-market, trends, anything that you want to look at. You couple that with your own in-house data and you get a better business insight than you otherwise would. We acknowledge that, and customer care as a strategy sits inside this Twitter data as a product, right? So the entire roadmap is made from this genesis, that there is value in Twitter data. Can we expose this to brands, and can they take it to make better customer engagement? It's not customer service. Our quest is not to do customer service. We will not be a customer service platform. We're an engagement platform between handles on Twitter. Sure. A handle could be between 2 brands who talk. There are a lot of internet brands who talk to each other, sometimes flatteringly, sometimes not. And they're users to brands and people to people as well, right? So what we are doing is we are arming ecosystem partners around the world who are social layers, who do the aggregation, right? And who work with brands already from a software perspective or an app perspective. And we give this to them. In some cases, brands reach out to us directly, and we may or may not work with them directly, more than on Twitter data than customer care. But on customer care, we have ecosystem partners who are armed with all the product features that we've launched or are launching. They're armed with Twitter data at the back end, what we call the fire hose, and they can serve the end customer, the end brand directly.
Great. Thank you so much, Arvinder.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Ankit, moving on. Oyo, as Ritesh points out, you guys are already the largest hotel chain, brand, conglomeration, several things. And what's interesting is you're also in the tech industry. So you're essentially almost transforming an industry using technology. Do you then internally, when you think of product, think of the product as a tool of customer engagement, not just of commerce? And if yes, how?
So absolutely yes, Ankur. You know, for us, when Ritesh started, and what's been the core for all the developments and all the thought process in the company is that, you know, we are a tech company, which is kind of disrupting or changing the way a traditional hospitality industry kind of used to work. So for us, when we started off and we said that we have to solve the problem of affordability, predictability, and discovery. You know, obviously not so much affordability, but the other 2 problems of discovery and predictability is something which we thought is completely solvable through tech. And that's why what we have done is to kind of develop products, which is our web, our app, our mWeb, everything around it. And I'll again talk to you through examples. But before I go into specific examples, what I will say is that you know, over time we have realized that technology is one thing which can really help you do a lot for a customer service and engagement perspective. But at the end of the day, for an industry like hospitality in which we operate, or I think it will be applicable for a lot of companies across India, to some extent human intervention does come in. And hence we have also realized that as we have evolved, that you know, human intervention cannot be completely replaced through technology. But what technology can end up doing is kind of making human interface much more productive, or much more tailored, or pinpoint it to where you want it to happen. So, so for example, let me talk about, we have people on street, which are our ground teams. They're there about 120 odd cities. Traditionally, the hotel industry has operated with one single hotel having close to about anything like 5 to 20 people operating and staff members, and a lot of other players in the industry in which we are, even in the branded segment today, operate with that kind of staff in the segment. But when we thought about disrupting on price points, we realized that this kind of a presence is obviously not what is something which can, which we can afford. And hence we kind of started cutting down corners to all the different fat, so to say, which was built up across the organization. And we thought of that, let's have technology in place, let's have an app, and let's have an app which kind of is in the hands of the customer, and the customer kind of tells us about various parts of the journey. So he talks us about booking, post-booking, check-in, check-out. He talks us about various things which he has used in the hotel. And because of the fact that we have so many customers coming in and we have so many data points which are coming in every day, at the end of the day, you really have a very targeted set of things around which are the hotels where things are not working and which are the hotels where things are working. And then you can actually use a combination of on-ground presence and a call center-ish customer center support to kind of intervene and solve for it. So that's exactly how we kind of see technology kind of mingling into human touch and human support to kind of develop the experience. The other point of importance is, when we think about technology, it is very important that the technology is also kind of thought of in a way and built in a way to deliver what you stand for and what is the disruptive thing you want to kind of bring into the industry. So for us, the disruptive thing which we wanted to bring to the industry was, the discoverability. And hence we said that, this has to be solved through technology, because otherwise it will be the same thing as, you basically call a call center or look through a website. So what we kind of said is, and where we take real pride in saying, is that we kind of came up with an app in which we put together a 3-tap booking process, in which you really open an app and in 10 seconds you can actually book a hotel, which is the real experience which we wanted to create when we set out for. And that's where, technology really defined the customer experience which we wanted to deliver, and that's why probably a lot of people, are happy with OYO or want to come back and stay again in OYO.
Great, thank you. You're also, Ankit, in an industry or represent an industry where the customer buys at a certain point of time but avails the service slightly later, whether it's hours, days, or perhaps even weeks. And how do you really engage with the customer between this time period of the purchase to consumption? And have you seen some interesting learnings come out from that?
No, that's actually quite interesting. So, we see a significant chunk of people booking their hotel stay before they actually consume it. And sometimes the difference between a booking to the time of consumption is even as high as months. For example, people tend to book for their year-end destinations quite in advance. And hence it's very important as a brand for us to keep engaged with the customer, right from the time the booking has been made to the time when the customer wants to check in. So there are two things which you said, and I'll kind of elaborate on both, on how we kind of use both to engage with the customer. The one thing which you said is technology, and again going back to the fact that we consider ourselves at the end a tech-driven company. What we do is we use technology to kind of engage with the customer as various touch points between the point of booking to the point of check-in. So we have thought through this entire journey, on how customers behave, and kind of identified various things which the customers would want to do before booking to check in. So a customer would want to probably communicate to the hotel the time at which he's going to check in, and maybe make special requests that I'm going to come late in the night, so keep the room ready. Or the customer may actually want to kind of know what kind of clothes to pack in, because if he's probably going to a northeast at this time of the year, he really doesn't know whether it's too cold or it's too hot, and how is it for an infant. So he'd probably want to know about weather and stuff. He'll also probably want to know about the various tourist destinations which he would want to kind of visit once he's going to the city. and these preferences would differ by the type of the customer, right? So if it's a leisure customer, he would probably be more interested in knowing places of visit, where if it's a business customer, he would probably want to know where his company is and what he can do in this limited time which he has left after kind of doing his business. So we kind of profile customers, and we have identified almost about 10-12 such touch points, between the time of booking to the time when the customer actually checks in. And what we try to do is, through our app, we kind of engage with the customer and send him notifications and pieces of information and snippets about various things which he would like to do and would like to know, which can help him plan his journey better, or just come better prepared, or be more happier when he is going to come in. What we also do is that not only our engagement is not a point engagement, so it's not just kind of it does not end when the customer actually checks in. It continues throughout his stay. So what we kind of do is that even on the day when the customer is about to actually go to the hotel, we kind of have thought through what all will he want to do before going to the hotel, then after going to the hotel. So probably he'll want to kind of book a cab. Then when he's in the hotel, he'll probably want to book room service, or want to figure out the nearest restaurants if he wants to try something new if he's on a long stay. So what we do is, through our product, we give him all these numerous things to engage. So we kind of let him book a cab on the day when he's about to check in. We let him book a hotel, or actually we are even exploring things about letting him book tickets to the nearest amusement park, or a movie, or whatever he wants to do. So we are trying to basically use technology across this entire journey, and basically make the customer be able to do whatever he wants to through the product. The other thing you mentioned is about data, and data is again one thing which is very important. So the way we use data is basically to profile customers, and as Manish said, there are different tiers in the jet privilege. So we also, every brand has tiers. So for certain set of customers who probably are in our highest tier, what we try to do is we try to create that extra special experience for them when they are about to come in on the day. So we use data to kind of give them almost, so to say, personal concierge kind of an experience on the day when they are about to check in. So they have somebody on the ground, or somebody supporting them virtually, who can actually do everything for them, and literally support them throughout the day. So it's like their personal assistant throughout the day, and that is again something which, through data and prior habits and stuff, which we kind of do, and provide that personalized experience to the customer.
Perfect. That's fascinating. Thank you so much, Ankit. Ravnesh, moving on to you. The Indian Railways sees passengers that almost all of e-commerce doesn't on a daily basis, but we're getting there. It's a humongous operational effort, and there are several news items that keep coming up of this renewed response rate of the Indian Railways, whether it's on social media, whether it's on the call center, so on. So there are great positive stories coming up. You've been at the helm of this ever since it started in the 139 number. Being part of a social government sector, how hard was it to sell the technology story as part of the customer engagement program?
Well, on the Indian Railways, actually, it started with the minister had a personal Twitter handle, and he used to get a lot of tweets regarding the personal help and other issues. So last year, somewhere near April, the Ministry of Railway actually launched its official Twitter handle, which is Railman India. And when it all started, people were just clueless how to, handle the whole volume of the tweets which were, landing on the Twitter wall. So it was slowly, number one, there was a lot of cultural change. The railway people, they were not accustomed to, use of the social media like Twitter and Facebook and all. Number two was the volume. So actually these two challenges, the culture, in fact what we did was that we outsourced, we brought agents from the market which were, the tech savvy and all those things. And for the volume, we realized that it is not the manual system of working can actually help the system. So with the help of technology, what we did that, in fact, we found there were two things which were actually, coming out of it was, number one was the instant, the reaction, that is the real time, addressing or the engagement. Another thing, what we realized that it is also a big, huge MIS, a huge report, which is an external feedback for the Indian Railways. So now, with the help of the technology, not only we have reduced the the response time, so we have roughly around 6,000 to 7,000 tweets every day, out of which, with the help of the technology, we have around 1,500 actionable tweets, which are created into tickets, and these tickets are assigned to the agents who are working round the clock 24/7. And similarly, we also have a Twitter handle for the DRMs, the divisional rail managers, who are actually the cutting edge people. Actually, all this solution is in fact done by them. So the moment a tweet lands up on the railway in India, which is an actionable tweet, it is tagged to the DRM, which is spread over the, the different parts of the country. And the agent sitting in the Twitter cell in the railway ministry, he, with the help of the PNR, tracks the location of the train, the coach, and the passenger's mobile number also. In many a time they also need to have that. And immediately it is tagged to the DRM. The DRM in turn, they pass it on to the divisional control, and the divisional control, they tell the concerned station where the help is to be given. So this is how it all started, and with the help of technology, you will not believe that now the reaction time for the urgent actionable tweet is not more than 25 to 30 minutes. So it's a huge thing which is happening to the passengers. Not only this, we have also now with the MIS reports, we know that which, the segment of the railway working, which is weak in maintenance, which area of the railway system which is prone to theft and luggage lifting. So all type of database now we have. So this will go a long way in giving a passenger satisfaction.
And if I were to hazard a guess, as you pointed out, there are some which require ticketing and thus an action, and some which are being responded to by technology. Are these automated? So for instance, someone is tweeting on their PNR status. Have they got to a point where most of these responses to the tweets are automated, or there's still someone who is...
In fact, all these tweets, they land on a software platform, and these tweets are filtered out, and all the actionable tweets, they are created into a ticket, and the tickets have features like urgent. So the beauty of the Twitter is that it has a limited, the character, 140 character. So it's very easy to, identify. Somebody writes, he needs urgent medical help. So medical, urgent, they are the keywords through which it becomes an urgent thing. And the features, we are also trying to develop some feature where if it is an urgent, this thing, and the ticket is tagged to a DRM and DRM does not respond, then we also have mobile numbers of the DRM. There will be something like auto SMS to the DRMs, just to remind him that an urgent tweet was tagged to him. So that is how it is.
That's very progressive. Clearly some things that we can learn as well. I'm really curious if you have any unique customer urgent query anecdotes that you thought was a great learning experience. Anything that you'd like to share?
In fact, one day when I was sitting in my Twitter cell, somebody tweeted that he had a heart attack. He had a chest pain on this thing. In a train, in a very remote train, in a division of the eastern part of the country. We immediately tagged this ticket to the concerned DRM. And after an hour, the guy posted his photo in the where he was sitting in a hospital, and he thanked our team that because of that, the team of doctors in the ambulance attended him at the next station, and he was shifted to a hospital.
Very nice. Fantastic. Good job, Anurinder.
It's all there.
No, fantastic. These are great stories. Like it's come to a point where you have a heart attack, you tweet. Great. Thank you for that. Do we have any immediate audience questions so that we can start? I see a hand up there from a lady. Can we pass around a mic so that we have...
Okay. Hi, I'm Anant Kiran. I'm from Mumbai International Airport. My question is for Mr. Ankit. I'm an ardent follower of, I keep reading about startups and e-commerce and, whatever is budding in the e-commerce and the businesses and the service industry. I've been reading about Oyo a lot. And I do not, though I appreciate that, you've given me some very good insights about the technology and the discovery experience that, a customer would get from the apps that you have introduced. Do you think that it solves the customer experience troubles here for Oyo? Because I've seen a lot of customers posting their pictures about a very dirty room, something going very wrong in the washrooms. I mean, imagine we have an example of a person who is tweeting when he's having a heart attack, and that is being dealt with immediately. And on the other hand, we have very disgruntled, dissatisfied customers who are not taken care of. Only a segment of it wherein Ritesh gets involved and he kinds of settles it down is something which is, I would appreciate that though. But then I think recently I read something about there is a revamping that is taking place in the customer experience strategy for Oyo. Do you have anything to say about that? I think I would learn a lot in case you can throw light on that.
No, thanks. Actually, the article is there in your story, and I think it's come out recently, so everybody it's out there in the public. No, so like any brand and like any startup, the fact that we take pride in is that we are trying to solve a problem which is huge, and it's really to solve. It's not been solved, and that's why we are trying to scale up and solve the problem of standardizing experience in an industry which has not been standardized for years. So we do have occasional issues when customers reach out to us and tell us about the fact that they have some problem with their hotel. Few facts, which I would like to kind of put out are that about almost 85% of the customers who stay with Oyo on any day, and we have about 6 to 7 times the number of people who are staying with us than the second largest hotel chain in India right now. 85% of them actually come out saying that they have had a fantastic experience. And it's only about 15% of them who say that it was either okay or it was not that good. So the problem of the fact that it's restricted. We do have some people who have issues. Now to solve those issues, what we kind of do is like was highlighted here. We also have all our social handles and products within the app where customers can actually chat with us or raise an issue through the app or can contact our customer service desk. And we take pride in the fact that whenever we have had people reach out to us for resolutions, we have been able to solve those all the problems which customers come to us with or come to us for within a time of about 30 minutes. So almost 99% of the issues which come to us get resolved in 30 minutes. And yes, there are those occasional posts which narrate stories, but there are certain facts behind it which is actually the truth. We are basically trying hard to make sure that these occasional cases where the customer service was bad in the first place is also not there, which is what we have highlighted. We are doing through the article where Ritesh and Abhinav have already spoken about what we are doing in terms of hotel rating and extensive training and tying up with the Ministry of Training, etc. And I think that in times to come, that 15% set of the customers who probably have an okay to not okay experience will also get transformed.
I'm glad if the numbers that you've mentioned are, those are good figures though. But then there is one of the Harvard Business Reviews that I was reading the other day, which said that, in case of your dissatisfied, disgruntled customers, there are chances of them actually recommending 80% times to their fellow, families and friends not to use the service. So I think that obviously should not be taken as a smaller number, like 15% is a big number. And
no, that's indeed a big number, and that's why we kind of put it out in the public that we are in a place where we are trying to solve a big problem, and we are still learning, and we are far away from the fact that the problem is fully solved, and that's why we are very confident that the 15% who are not happy even today, probably in about 6 to 7 months, this number will become minuscule.
All right, good luck. Thanks.
Thank you.
Time to give out a gift voucher, Ankit. We have gentlemen.
Yeah, hi. My name is Anil Makhija and I represent Book My Show. This conversation just now that happened triggered a slight thought in my mind, which is that today it's a universal problem when it comes to providing service. Okay, when you're a direct manufacturer or something, it's okay. But the moment you have a third-party involvement, how do any of you panelists can answer this question? How would you typically deal with issues or challenges dealing with third-party services that are to be provided? So your service ends at a point and then somebody else takes over. So how do you deal with such issues?
I'd like to take a shot if that's okay with you. So at Nearbuy, formerly Groupon India, that's exactly the business we are in. And it's funny, last Friday I had a couple of hours session with Ashish from BMS where we were discussing exactly the same thing. There's a customer who buys from us, but the ultimate delivery of the service is happening from someone else. It's a classic case of Uber or Ola, where the driver is the custodian of the service, or a BMS where maybe the event organizers is the custodian of the service, or in our world, the service player itself, whether it's a restaurant, the spa salon, so on, or maybe an OYO, which is somewhat of a marketplace, the hotel owner itself. There are 2 or 3 things that are industry standards that have come up, and we can share our experience. One thing which beautifully always works is crowdsourced customer ratings and reviews, because that instantly tells people whether this place is happy to be going to or not. Where I think brands don't do a good job, and that's what we at least recognized, is they ask customers to rate the experience, which is very different from saying, would you recommend this place to your friends and family? Subtle difference, but a very important one. When you're asking to rate someone, they may end up rating it on the ambience, the quality, the conduct, so on. But when they ask a very pointed, direct question of would you recommend this place to your friends and family, there's a lot more emotion that's going in there. And that's when they will be very objective in yes, no, because I don't want someone else to go through this, or maybe yes. That's number one. Number 2 is, of course, the emotional labor that you have to put in to train these merchants or these partners in and out, to help sensitize them to the fact that these are just as genuine customers. So we suffer particularly from the baggage that our partners think, yaar ye offer leke aaye hain, to ye discount wale customer hai. And that's natural reaction. But we actually go into far higher details to tell them that it's actually not the case. So for instance, we constantly keep track of what are the customer reviews on Zomato when people use Nearbuy as against the normal rating that the customer has. And we've consistently found that customers who use Nearbuy and rate on Zomato have a 7% higher rating than the normal customer rating. Now, when you tell that to the restaurant, that's quantifiable data that's telling them that these customers don't mean ill. They actually are helping you create your brand. And you'll have to find ways and mechanisms of making that work so that the reinforcement is there that these are not bad customers, these actually mean good and they don't mean any harm. Third thing, which I think Ankit pointed to, is we're living in a country where we will always be at the edge of someone having a bad experience, and we cannot escape that. I think as a brand, what we always need to be ready for is not so much of whether you have Six Sigma quality, but how do you also respond when something goes bad, right? So in the event of Indian Railways, if that organization, which employs 1.5 million people, has a response rate of 30 minutes for anything across the country, which is not a small one, then it is absolutely not acceptable for any other brand to be lazier. And that has to come in with the intent saying, we don't control this and we are sorry because we were responsible for it, but now that things have gone bad, we want to correct and we want to go forward and solve that for you. And we genuinely are sorry and we apologize for that. At least in our experience, that truly always works. I get almost 250 customer emails a day. I personally respond to about 60, 70 of them, direct the rest of those to my team. But at no point of time does any email go unanswered because it just hit my inbox or because I'm this busy guy who doesn't have time for anything else. And that has to translate into a lot more. Anyone else who would love to share on this aspect?
Yeah, I'll probably just add on the fact that, when you actually work with people, and partners rather, the right word is partners, who kind of help you deliver the product or the service which you are promising, it's very important to kind of create a ecosystem of partners and, work with them and invest in them. And that's the thing which we realized in Oyo, that, we often say this, that what's the difference between being a marketplace or being a managed marketplace. So we take pride to the fact that we are a managed marketplace, and we actually invest significantly in our partner. So there are, now we have across 5,000 partners pan-India and growing, and we have seen that there are a significant chunk of partners because of the investment which we have done in their staff, in their commercial systems, in their hotel training systems, in their sales, in their branding, which have come back and said that, we have understood that what is that you really want us to deliver. And, all that initial stigma or apprehension, which kind of was there when we started with you to now has gone away. And now we kind of relate to the brand and to the promise which you make. And hence we will, we have really understood that it doesn't matter that we have to spend the extra 10 rupees or 100 rupees, but we will give the same level of service to the customer which you are committing as a brand. So unless and until you create that ecosystem for partners and invest in them, which also takes time, you would not have them immediately deliver the same experience or the same promise which you actually stand for. So that's hard work, and nothing can replace it.
Great. We have gentleman right in front.
My name is Arjun. I'm from Club Mahindra. My question is for Tata. We always have those unreasonable customers for whom whatever we do is never, ending, and they're not satisfied. And then they resort to Twitter for cyberbullying. And we've had so many cases where people have been constantly tweeting about us, retweeting the negative complaints we have, and then trying to blackmail us. I just want to understand, how can we deal with those situations? And if any of you guys have faced similar kind of issues, how do you deal with that?
I think deal with the facts, and if the facts are right, if your case is right, then there's nothing wrong which the brand has done or your team or people have done. We faced the situation multiple times, but be truthful, share the facts with the customer, and which essentially means that you need to have significant investment in the data. Your data should reflect what the decision is made. So these things do happen, but you need to be honest and truthful about the factual correctness of what has been done. And if something has been done wrong, then apologize and make good.
The thing is, because Twitter is an open platform, right? They don't stop. So whatever you do, because you can't hide anything on Twitter, even if you block them, they can still retweet. So from Twitter's perspective, I don't know, how to go about handling those customers on Twitter.
So, we have a policy on block and mute. I think those tools we've made available. I mean, there are celebrities also who get trolled. There are individuals and brands who get trolled on Twitter. So we've put out multiple blog posts and multiple tools to allow, to make sure that we reduce the kind of trolling behavior that is there. But end of the day, Twitter is a place where conversations happen on any topic. Sometimes the conversations are cordial, sometimes they don't end up being cordial, and people will misbehave. And it's just, imagine this gathering, and in one table, somebody picks a fight with another gentleman, and we'll go on and on about it. And there are two ways of tackling it. And this is in the real world. Forget online on Twitter. You can either stand there and argue till both of you become, deaf and your throats go dry and you both hospitalized with laryngitis, or one of you just walks away. And because there's an old adage that my Renan Martin taught me: let barking dogs die, right? And media cycles and the attention spans being so small that this will die immediately. So as the gentleman said, come back with the truth, come back with the fact, and if after that behavior doesn't improve, ignore and walk away, and you carry on your business. Because some of these guys are jobless and they have nothing else to do but to do this. You, on the other hand, have many other things to take care of. So if you're not feeding their angst, they will then eventually get bored of doing what they're doing.
Great, this was an engaging conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you, panelists, for being part of this, and thank you, audience, for the questions and being patient with us.